to Tiger Talks. Welcome into Tiger Talks Wrestling. I'm Tony, and I am joined today by my friend John. Welcome to the show, man.
Thanks for having me. How's it going?
Going pretty good. How about you?
Doing good.
Good. See, rocking the Dean Ambrose shirt today.
Always. I mean,
Yes.
We're talking WWE and AEW. Might as well, right?
Right. Good point. Good point. As mentioned there, this is a debut episode. First one looking towards doing 52 of these this year. Try and get some more subscribers to the channel. Got AEW, WWE preview show. We'll also be talking about other promotions, not just those two, but those will be the main two that we'll focus on. So, Busboy was slated to be here. I haven't heard from him. He may or may not come in. If he does, he does. If he doesn't, then he doesn't make it in. We're going to move on to some news before we jump into Monday Night Raw. To mention Vincent Kennedy McMahon, the chairman himself, back in WWE. There's still a lot of people who I believe are not so happy about this. Interesting to hear that he is, the way he got brought back in, he is not taking back over control of much of anything. He will be the chairman still. What's up for now?
Thank goodness. Let's just let Triple H run it.
Right? So he's just, the main thing for Vince was he's the main profit holder for WWE. And it almost sounds like there may be a sale of WWE to somebody. From what I was seeing from Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful.com and a few other places on Twitter, JP Morgan Chase has been contacted by WWE, and they are looking to potentially sell the rights of WWE to somewhere. So, but little info here. They had a WWE employee meeting on Friday night before SmackDown, because Vince was brought back on Friday, it was announced. It was stressed that the day-to-day operation is not changing across the board. Vince McMahon is the controlling shareholder. Possibility of a sale is there, as well as the media rights. Stephanie McMahon and Nick Khan will still be co-CEOs of WWE going forward. Stephanie, Nick Khan, and Frank Riddick meeting. It was noted that the WWE sale could be a huge positive, and that they'd be looking at potential sale offers before negotiating the rights fees. Vince McMahon will get the final say. So the sale might not happen, and the company could be taken private if there's a sale. So, but yes, Triple H will still be, for now anyways, will still be in charge of creative. So, because Vince, from one thing I read online, said that he is happy with how things have been going. He doesn't see any reason to break up how Stephanie and Nick and Triple H have been handling things. So he's going to leave all that for them, and he's just there to be the stockholder pretty much. Again, they always put at the end, for now. So you never know. Vince might change his mind and decide, I want my control back. I'm taking back everything. So
the countdown for entrant 30, out comes Vince.
You know, I've seen some people saying things like that on Twitter. So I hope not, but you never know. It'll be interesting to see going forward. I know I did see some people in the offices and the headquarters did put in their resignation right away. Nick Barrios and Michelle Wilson, who are both huge people underneath Vince, were brought back into the company. So it'll be interesting to see who all stays and who all goes. I've heard some superstars that just recently came back under Triple H's fold have even talked about potentially leaving again. So we'll just have to wait and see what all transpires. Because Vince, as far as I know, the investigation is still ongoing into the allegations against it. So I don't know. We'll see where things end up going from here. If WWE gets sold, I know a friend of mine that I've known since I was a child mentioned on Twitter, or on Facebook to me, he says he thinks that this will be the end of wrestling as we know it if WWE gets sold. I personally don't think it will be, because I feel like, yes, maybe they might get sold, but there's still, I can't see the McMahons fully selling all of the rights to WWE, and they're still going to want that weekly programming. So I don't think it's going to matter too much if they'd sell it. They're just trying to make it more private, or more trying to create more business, if you will, is the way I look at it. There's got to be some positives to it. Not all going to be negative. It's not like they're WCW and they're going under. You know, I think some people want to look at it that way, but it's not. It's not the same as WCW. It's my take on it, anyways. Anything you want to add to that whole Vince returning situation?
I mean, as long as he's not in the whole creative part of the company, it's fine, because I feel like since he left, there's been some of the best pay-per-views put out. Even
True.
the one in Saudi was a great pay-per-view, which usually isn't. So,
right?
As long as he's come back as a shareholder, I could care less. Let's just keep
Exactly.
how we're doing stuff. Triple H has got it going down. Let's run with it.
I agree. I know some people are afraid he's going to want to come back and take over control, and some people figure he's going to want to be back on TV. And I don't know. I feel like just give it time, see where things go. It was a shock when he decided to retire last July. I think it might be even a little bit more of a shocker to see that he's back now. But when you would, not that you wouldn't ever think Vince would come back, because I always figured someday there would come a time that Vince would come back and at least go in the Hall of Fame, if nothing else. But
yeah,
I don't know. Almost feels like a little too soon, possibly, but we'll see where things go. All right. In the question yet, if anybody wants to their own input, put it in the comment section throughout the show. We're going to move on. We're just going to talk about the shows in order. I don't have any videos set up, but we'll just mention. I write down everything that happens anyway. So, Monday Night Raw this past week. We're in Nashville. There's a lot of things to go over from that 3-hour show. You start the show with the Bloodline attacking, or not really attacking, but destroying the entire ringside area. They didn't even get the full entrance video in before the show started. The whole intro. And they actually have KO comes out after Sammy and the rest are talking. You get Adam Pearce out there. You get the security guards out there. Like they're going to stop Kevin Owens from getting in the ring with the Bloodline. But especially now with the way things are. Eventually you see several superstars have to come out there, and kind of Adam Pearce says, hey, this isn't happening. This is a new year. We're not having, because that's happened. Eventually find out the Bloodline gets put in matches. We go on to find out it'll be Elias eventually gets in a backstage segment put in a match against Solo Sikoa in the Nashville Tennessee, Music City street fight, rather. Get the name of it right here, which we'll get into that match in a little bit. Usos and Sammy, of course, in a 6-man tag against KO and Street Profits as well through all that. A lot of the other guys you also seen backstage that didn't get a match. Dolph Ziggler was back there, Ali, Cedric Alexander, Shelton Benjamin, and Luke Gallows, the only member of the OC who was actually one of two members, of the OC who was actually in the building on Monday night. To back off of that a little bit, or to go back on that a little bit, AJ Styles last weekend did get injured in a house show. He is out of action for several weeks. From what I hear, it's about 4 to 6 weeks with the ankle injury, knee, ankle, whichever it was. Hopefully, it won't be any further than that. I mean, unfortunately, he's going to miss the Royal Rumble for the first time since he's come to WWE, which is going to be missed there. But I'm not really sure they had huge plans for AJ at the Royal Rumble anyways, other than probably being in the Rumble. So it's not a huge miss. Just don't want to see AJ go down for a long period of time and possibly missing out on WrestleMania, which somebody else may have later on in the show. We'll get into that later, though. Let's jump in. The first match, you get the Raw Women's Championship match. Alexa Bliss versus Bianca Belair. The match in and of itself was really good, as you'd expect from those two. The ending, well, not so great. I mean, you get a guy in the crowd who looks like it's Kenny Anderson with an Uncle Howdy mask on that Alexa interacts with a little bit, and then another guy over on the other side of the arena that has some Uncle Howdy mask on that she interacts with. Wyatt Lowe, and Alexa goes ape shit on the referee to cause a disqualification. From there, that is the referee is taken out. Alexa would then go shit, if you'll put it that way, on Bianca Belair. And I actually enjoyed this side of Alexa Bliss, to be honest with you. This is the Alexa Bliss that we've been missing, and I feel like even if they keep going like this is the version that we kind of wanted to see when she was with really getting the chance to see. And I think that's what she kind of wanted herself, to get the second chance and get a chance to show a more darker side, if you will, of the character, more evil side, I think would be the better word for it there. I mean, not one, but 2 DDTs to Bianca on the steel steps, and Bianca was busted open from that. Her elbow was destroyed pretty much. I think she said it was 3 stitches was what it took to fix her up. So what was your take on that match and everything that came out of it?
I mean, we can just sum it up real quick. The ending of that match was bliss.
I
mean, it had to have been said.
Right?
I mean, I thought the match itself had a slow start, but once it picked up, it became more entertaining. But right where you could see go into a higher point, that's when all the fun stuff happens, where the possessing happens, the symbol happens, and not only does Bianca get her butt whooped, but the ref gets taken on a total bliss trip as well.
Right.
I mean, if I did say out of 10, I'd say it's a 7 out of 10 match. About the bliss trip.
Yeah. I think I like that one. 7 out of 10. That sounds about right. Yeah, it's crazy. One thing I will mention that they did a little bit more on Raw that they kind of seemed to go away from was they did a lot of recapping from earlier in the night or from previous weeks. I personally am not a huge fan of them doing that kind of stuff, recapping and showing things several times throughout the show, because that's, to me, just taking time from the competitors that could be in there and having another match, even if it is a short match. But that's my complaint on that part. Yeah, highlights. You had Kathy Kelly talk to Austin Theory backstage. Theory claims that brags about his big win at the Triple Threat match and how he's going to beat Seth Rollins later in the show. And Everything's going his way pretty much. Go from there into the Music City street fight between Solo and Elias. I'll say that match was kind of a train wreck. I mean, you've seen a lot of the weapons you would think you would see in that type of a match used. And I think Solo kind of took more punishment in that match than we've seen him take on the main roster thus far. But the ending of that match, that spinning Solo onto the piano and then the swelling
That
spike.
Beautiful.
It was. I was gonna say it was a chef's kiss there. Of course, Solo. Go ahead.
Not to mention you got Hardy getting involved in that match as well.
Yes, for anybody who doesn't know, the musician Hardy, not Matt Hardy, not Jeff Hardy, no relation to the Hardy Boys. Musician Hardy, who is going to be at the Royal Rumble performing his song that is the theme of the Royal Rumble. So I have a feeling he probably will have a little something to do with Solo at the Royal Rumble as well. Since, I mean, he cracked a guitar over the back of Solo and Solo didn't flinch an inch. The guy just turned around and stared Hardy down, and Hardy got out of the ring as quick as he could. Still almost got. So
it's a good celebrity moment.
It was. I have a feeling there'll be one or two other celebrities probably involved at the Royal Rumble, but one of them you might not call a celebrity anymore because he is an active WWE competitor now, but still. They both might be.
I don't know. I might have to pun it through my head in a second.
Right? But anyway, Solo Sikoa gets the win with the spike, as mentioned. The actual lead, the Samoan spike, I want to mention how he did it because Elias was coming off the ropes when he caught him with the Samoan spike before he hit that spinning Solo on the piano and pinned him. So
yeah, that was a brutal Samoan spike.
Yes, it was.
Umaga would be proud.
That he would. You got to keep Solo Sikoa's momentum rolling as he stays undefeated with that victory. Anything else you want to say about that match before I move on?
Nah. I mean, the match itself, I mean, it had a few good moments, but
right.
There's a reason why it was in between the opening match and the closing match because it really wasn't that good when you look at the matches.
Right. I'd agree. Elias got a few decent shots in there, like I said, using the cymbal and the different drums and everything else that they could use in that match. But
that running knee, that was beautiful.
Yes, it was. I agree with that. All right. So then they moved on from there, showed highlights from the SmackDown main event of John Cena and KO winning over the Roman Reigns and Sami Zayn, leading into the 6-man tag match, Street Profits and KO versus Sami Zayn and the Usos. I honestly wasn't that impressed by this 6-man tag, to be perfectly honest with you.
It was what was happened after what got my attention.
Well, yeah, I get that. The 6-man tag, it just felt like it was, I don't know if it was cut short time-wise or what, but it seemed like it was kind of rushed in a way to me. I don't know. It just didn't feel right. A lot of times lately they've done 6-man tags pretty good in WWE, but this one just, you would have thought with the 6 guys in it, it would have been better than what it was.
Yeah.
Bloodline ends up getting the win. Sammy pinned Montez Ford after hitting a haluva kick. But afterwards, I mean, like you mentioned, was what kind of caught our attention. Sammy gets in there, and you get Kevin Owens out there to try and help out. The Usos and Solo fighting out. But then it's Sheamus and Drew McIntyre who come out to try, not to try, but to help out and chase the Bloodline away. It's definitely interesting to see KO, Sheamus, and Drew on the same side of things after all these years. But, I mean, the enemy of thy enemy, as they say.
Yep.
Almost seems like the point here. I mean, obviously Kevin Owens, Sheamus, and Drew were part of the War Games match as teammates as well. But we'll dive in. Of course, KO had bigger news come out of SmackDown for him, which we'll get into later. But what was your big takeaway from that brawl? Since you mentioned that was the thing that caught your attention more than the match.
I mean, at first when you first saw Solo just come out there, and then Kevin tried to stop Solo, you kind of knew that, oh, it's gonna be what you're expecting, just to be another Solo shows up. We're gonna beat down the three faces. Bloodline's gonna dominate. Then when you finally got that set in your mind, here come the big boys. And I have a feeling it might not be right away, but not only the big boys, but your future tag team champions.
Possibly. I mean, we'll see. Yeah, I'll mention when we get to it. Sheamus and Drew had something interesting happen after their match at SmackDown too. So move on. After that, they showed the tweet of AJ mentioning his broken ankle. He'll be out of action for a while. It could have been worse than what it ended up being. So that's always good news to hear that he doesn't need surgery on it. It's just something that he can heal without surgery. So we moved on to an out of nowhere match, in my opinion. Chad Gable versus Dexter Lumis. I mean, last we seen Dexter Lumis 2 weeks ago. Shush! Last we seen Dexter Lumis 2 weeks ago, he was losing to The Miz in a ladder match, thanks to Bronson Reed, who returned.
Yeah, I must say, it was no Miz winning that match. That was all Bronson.
That is very true. It was Bronson. All Bronson.
Dexter had it until Bronson showed up.
Yeah. I mean, 2 weeks ago on Raw, Chad Gable was in a match against, who was it? Was it him and Otis against the OC, I do believe.
Yeah, I think so.
Yep, it was. They lost to Anderson and Gallows, the Good Brothers. Obviously, Gallows, again, was the only guy member of the OC at Raw because Carl Anderson was over in Japan. AJ is out injured. I guess that would be why that Chad Gable would get put into a random match when there's no OC member that they're feuding with lately. But the match was what it was. Chad Gable had his great moments as usual lately. Dexter looked pretty good throughout. The finish was pretty good itself as well. Not great. I mean, it was what it was. Put it that way.
I mean, for seemed like a match just being thrown together, it was a great match. It had great spots, and you would have never thought it was just made out of nowhere. It looked like it was an actual planned match, and beautiful.
Right. I mean, they had pretty good chemistry with each other, so perhaps something that we'll see more of down the line. But I feel like Lumis and Miz probably aren't done. It just looked like Miz, for some reason, wasn't there in Nashville. So we'll see what happens with that going forward.
Yeah, Lumis is going to team up with Bad Bunny at Mania to go against Miz.
Maybe. We'll see. So then we go from that match. They show the video for Cody Rhodes talking about just showing all the stuff leading to his return to WWE and what his goals are going forward. Next week, they'll have a video of him talking more about the injury that happened at Hell in a Cell as we're leading to, I'm sure eventually they'll mention that, hey, Cody Rhodes is going to be in the Royal Rumble because we all already figured he'd be part of the Royal Rumble match anyways. They can't leave it as a surprise, though. So then they go from that to Damage Control, shown headed to the ring. I didn't notice it during the show, but I did see online afterwards that if you look closely in the background, you could see Shelton Benjamin, Cedric Alexander, and MVP talking in the background.
Really?
Yes, you could.
That'd be a little
Seen that on
Hurt Business reunion.
that, from what I've read, is in the talk, so probably going to happen sooner than later. All right. So then we move on. You get Damage Control out to the ring. Of course, Bayley's got to brag about her victory over over Becky Lynch. 2 weeks ago on Raw. With help, she did it all by herself, even though we know better. Io and Dakota were out there and helped her.
She's such a role model.
Becky comes out. Yeah, sure she is.
She used to be.
Yeah. Becky comes out. They get in the verbal argument. I think we'll probably end up seeing Becky and Bayley again at some point in time, was what this is going to lead to. But I'm sure probably all 5 of these women, as we'll get into, will probably all be part of the Royal Rumble match. But we'll see, because they've only been one person announced for the men, well, 2 now, and one person announced for the women's Royal Rumble match so far. So, but anyway, after all the verbal talking, Becky ends up getting put into a handicap match, what she says she's going to do, because she didn't have a phone on her to call anybody or have time to go back and ask anybody for help, which was kind of a funny line that Becky had there. But I've always loved the man version of Becky Lynch. I think it's her best version that she's always had, personally.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
So we get the match. It looks like it's a handicap match. Halfway through, though, Becky gets a little help as Michin Mia Yim comes out. I honestly want to say Becky put up a pretty good fight against Dakota and Io for being the former tag team champions before Mia Yim came out, but still, it was a pretty good match afterwards. Of course, you have some shenanigans, though, from Damage Control, from Bayley, helping out on the outside, which leads to an over-the-moon salt on Mia Yim. Io Sky picks up the win for Damage Control. Becky was too busy arguing with Bayley outside the ring to notice that her partner needed her. But that's what happens sometimes, I suppose.
Right.
What was your take on that?
I mean, I feel like it was better as a handicap match. No offense to Mia Yim, but I feel like with her coming out, it made Becky Lynch kind of weak. And I know why they did it. That way Becky doesn't take the pinfall. But I mean, I feel like they could have worked it out a little better than the way they placed it out.
Yeah. I honestly felt like the finish of the match was a little bit sloppily done, but that might be just me nitpicking a little.
It's a basic women's division match.
I suppose so. I mean, they're better now than what they were.
Yeah.
Back in the end, so give them that. Each one of them had pretty good spots. I mean, Dakota got their kick in the corner. I love that move. It was her finisher in NXT, but it doesn't seem to use it as one now on the main roster. But she got a pretty good one in on Becky at one point in that match. Just about thought it could have ended it, but it didn't, of course. All right. So they go from that match. Kathy Kelly talks to Seth backstage. They showed Jimmy Allen in the crowd. Byron talked to Alexa backstage as well. Alexa saying that Bianca's pretty much meeting the real her for the most part. And she's finding out that she's more of a threat than what she originally thought. Is what it sounded like, is what Alexa was saying. Anything you want to mention from the Seth Rollins interview or the Alexa Bliss before we go to what happened after that?
Not really. Okay. I mean, that was your basic interview.
I know, right?
Alexa's not even the dangerous part. It's Alexa.
Bray Wyatt special hobby.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sure. I mean, it'll be interesting to see where Alexa. Maybe, but I don't know. We'll see. They go from there. The video that was posted on social media on Christmas Eve of Dominic and Rhea Ripley showing up at Rey Mysterio's great dad's house. I mean, that slap that Angie actually gave Rhea, damn.
I know.
In that video.
That was a pop in itself.
Right? And from that, I mean, all the arguing and saying that Angie should have been the one getting arrested, but yeah, Dominic's the one getting arrested for attacking Ray on Thanksgiving of all times instead of what's going on that day. It's like, really? The whole point in that. But it was just funny hearing Dominic say, "You can't let them take me, mommy. I won't make it in jail." And then you go from that to Dominic sitting in a white room, has a teardrop tattooed on his face now. Like, oh boy. And saying that he was in prison and you thought things were hard before and all this nonsense. It's just going to lead to a match between him and Ray at WrestleMania. We all already know that. But
oh yeah,
it's interesting to see how things are going. I mean, Dom was the only member of the Judgment Day that actually was shown on Monday Night Raw live anyway. So that was interesting to see as well. Anything you want to take from what Dominic's backstage promo besides that?
I mean, Ray might want to be a little scared because prison can change a man. Might be exactly what Dom needs.
Sure. I don't know. I think that the thing it did for Dominic, that promo, was kind of give him a little more of an edge to his character that he probably really needs. But we'll see going forward how it helps or hurts Dom.
You know, it's going to make a beautiful image for Dominic Guerrero.
Right? Yeah, that's what I was going to mention. It was kind of an promo was kind of what it's like, almost in a way.
Well, it's like the whole Dominic and Rhea. It's basically a mirror of Eddie and China.
Right? It is, too. I guess perhaps that's what they're just playing off of, maybe. Who knows? But they show a little video of Bronson Reed to remind the fans who Reed is and how dangerous he can be. Video of him facing some of the main guys from Raw, including Dijak from NXT and Damian Priest back in NXT, among others. And then you move on to the main event. Seth freaking Rollins, Austin Theory for the United States Championship. This match was easily the match of the night on Monday Night Raw. And myself, as many people probably already know, I'm a huge Seth Rollins fan. Whether he was heel or face, I've always been. These two, I don't think, could have a bad match against each other because their previous matches have been really good again between them, in my opinion. The thing I want to mention, though, during this match, closer towards the end, you seen Seth Rollins go for the buckle bomb. His knee gave out. That right knee, the same one that went out on him when he tried doing it to Kane, that put him out of action for 6 or 7 months, I want to say, a few years back. And Seth was having some issues with that knee for the rest of that match. He still was able to hit a lot of his moves. It kind of hindered him going for the stomp in a couple times, it looked like, which he went for that move like 3 or 4 times in the match, I believe is what it ended up being. Take it to the end of it. I mean, Seth had his moments. Theory had his moments, of course, in the match. A low blow, of all things, from Theory ends up costing Seth Rollins the match. Theory walks out, still the winner, still United States champion, which might be a good thing. Maybe it's an audible because from what I've seen online afterwards, Seth did collapse as he was trying to walk to the back and had to be held. So unfortunately. Not guaranteed. Not. I haven't heard specific reports, but it's looking like Seth might be out of action after that match. So from that, what did you take of the match though? Because like I said, that match to me was easily the match of the night.
That was a 25 out of 10 on the stars right there. I mean, you couldn't get a much better match. Even after the knee issue, it was there was nothing really changed. I mean, there was issues with some of the moves, but they still delivered a hell of a match, and that's something about Seth Rollins. No matter what kind of shape he's in, he's always going to provide you the best match possible.
Right? That is very true. Like I said, I hope for the best. I hope that he's not out for an extended period of time. But from what it looked like and what I've seen a little bit about on social media, Seth might be out of action for quite a while going forward. Might even miss WrestleMania. So hopefully not, but we'll see. So I would say put a bow on it. The show started off pretty good with the Bloodline whole storyline, getting in there and getting matches made between that, and then the opening match, the women's title match, was pretty good. Closing out with the U.S. title match was a great finish to the show. I didn't know if I was going to do this or not, but if we ranked it, I'd say the show is maybe like probably about 7.5, maybe out of 10. I would say.
I'd agree 100%. I'd say it was just above Ravridge.
Yeah. That's Raw. Raw. All right. Move on to NXT. Now this one, I don't write down everything that happens on the show, but their interviews and stuff don't really much matter in NXT, in my opinion. I won't talk as much about NXT. Yes.
You sure it's NXT or not like Japan says it? WB next.
I know. I noticed that when I see some of their videos. Like, what the hell? Speaking of, we'll get into that later. But anywho, so I will say this much: I have been a little more impressed with NXT lately since Triple H taking over control from NXT 2.0 that we were seeing beforehand. Though NXT still doesn't quite have that same feeling to me as what they did in the previous Black and Gold era when you had the Undisputed Era, DIY, and all those guys and gals that were a part of NXT back in the day. That could change because there is reports that there's going to be some, since I'm going to mention that, there's going to be some like indie wrestlers brought back in like they used to do every so often. There's one big name that has already been signed that will be joining NXT sooner rather than later here in 2023, Dragon Lee. So we'll see how things go from there. But this week's NXT, we started off with Carmelo Hayes, who I am a big fan of. Maybe not quite as big of a fan as Booker T, but I mean, if you hear Booker on NXT, Carmelo's like number one in his Fave 5, I think, every week. So, which I can understand why. Carmelo is a great athlete. Anyway, you get Carmelo Hayes with Trick Williams versus Apollo Crews. They put on a really good match. Trick Williams, of course, gets involved and eventually leads to Apollo taking the loss as he gets beat by Carmelo, which I felt like was the right move because Carmelo just needs to keep on the upward swing, so to speak. Because I've mentioned this before, even in our NXT predictions shows how much I like Carmelo Hayes and think he's a future star. But the leg drop that Carmelo hits off the top rope, I have a feeling that's probably part of why Booker has him as number one in his Fave 5. That scissors kick. Yeah. But anyway.
I mean, I might not be as big on Melo as you, but
yeah.
that's a future star, 100%. He's
Oh
got
yeah,
he's got the athletic ability and he's got the cockiness attitude to fit that ability. I mean,
right.
he's the package.
He is. You're right. Um, not a whole lot to mention from the match. Like I said, it's just a typical NXT match that you'd see. And um, oh, I should have checked that. I didn't see that. They put on a really good match. I mean, you got Apollo's moments that he'd normally get in any match. Carmelo got his too. You just didn't get to see Apollo get his finishing moves in, which I'm not even sure what exactly Apollo's finisher is nowadays, to be honest with you. But he's
He has
used
a
a couple
finisher.
different. Yeah, I know, right? But anyway, after the match, Axiom actually came out and attacked both Carmelo and Trick Williams, as it would lead into the match that was originally scheduled. It just wasn't scheduled for right then. Axiom versus Trick Williams. Um, Trick Williams has shown some pretty good, I guess you could say, in the few matches that I've seen of him, but I still feel like he needs some more seasoning before they do anything with him on the main roster compared to Carmelo. Axiom would show out in this match and pick up the win as well, even with Carmelo still at ringside. But Trick Williams, I'll say this: he's a decent athlete, but he's really good on the mic. So
But
if they're
he's
gonna
the
keep
hype man for a man that does not need hype.
right, that is true. I mean, Melo can do it on his own. So there's that. Um, Anything you had to take away from either one of those two matches? I don't know if you even watched NXT, but
I I, I saw a couple things from NXT. Didn't see the whole show.
yeah,
I saw highlights of the Mello and Apollo match, and
yeah,
for an NXT match, it was a good match.
right,
And then I saw a little bit of the Axiom and Trick Williams. Like you said, if Trick Williams had a little bit more seasoning, I feel like it could have been a nice 4-star, 5-star match.
right.
Which is, I mean, because Axiom is, I mean, you can't really talk about Axiom. That's a prime Mysterio right there.
Yeah,
I mean,
I
that's
would
what I
say
remember. That's what it reminds me of. Is Mysterio back in the day?
right. A young Ray Ray. Yeah,
Yeah.
I can see that. I mean, the former A Kid has kind of shown a lot of the aerial moves, if you will, for one thing, and the crowd really seems to get behind Axiom. So I could see him potentially being put in something similar to that. I still quite don't understand why they decided to put a mask on the guy, but hey, that's me.
Uh,
Just to have a
speaking
different
of
outlook.
speaking of
But
NXT talent, I feel really dumb because I didn't realize this, but Ed told me this at work the other day. So that new that a person's is like, I think his name's like Stacks.
yeah,
Is that really Reggie?
no scripts.
Okay,
That's Reggie.
script. That's why I meant scripts.
Yes,
The
that's
dude that
Reggie.
was.
Yeah.
I feel like an idiot because I didn't realize
You
that
like
was
that?
Reggie. No, I didn't know.
How could you not? I mean, he does the same move
He's
that
wearing
Reggie
a
did.
mask. Could be anybody.
Come on. I mean, just looking at the guy's build for another thing too.
I thought
I
it
knew
was
him
someone
right away.
bigger than Reggie. I didn't think.
No.
I guess I didn't realize how jacked Reggie was.
Yeah. I'm not a fan of this Scripps character though. I'll tell you
No,
that.
I liked Reggie. Reggie by himself was. I mean, it wasn't the best, but it was
Right.
entertaining.
It was. But we'll see where it goes from there. But speaking of Stacks, as you said first, he was in the next match. Channing Stacks Lorenzo went against Dijak. You know what? I didn't put that on there. Shame on me. The whole storyline behind that was Dax, of course, getting kidnapped by Dijak after or at the end of the main event from last week when Tony D'Angelo went against Wesley for the NXT North American Championship. And Stacks wanted revenge after he had gotten himself free and gotten away from Dijak. Dijak continues to impress, is how I felt like this match went. Stacks has been pretty impressive, though, too. He had a really good match against Shinsuke Nakamura, I want to say a month or two ago now, which it's Shinsuke Nakamura. You wouldn't have thought this nobody, no offense to Stacks, but you wouldn't have thought that he would have had as much offense as he did against Shin, but he did. And Shin kind of made him look really good, I felt like, in that match. It's points, and I felt like Stacks looked really good here in this match against Dijak as well. But of course, when it was all said and done, Dijak gets the win, continuing his momentum as he's under this new character going forward, and of course will lead to an eventual North American title match with Wesley down the line. Woo-hoo. All right. What do you think of the whole new version of Dijak that we're seeing?
I get Terminator vibes.
Yeah, I could see that.
I'm just waiting
That
for
makes
him to
perfect
look
sense.
like back here. I'm just waiting for like an interview. I'll be back. Just waiting for it.
Yeah. All right. So even though I didn't write it down, I know what happens next because of the match that happens next. You had Toxic Attraction, or the two members that are remaining of Toxic Attraction, came out and were talking about how 2023 will be the year of Toxic Attraction. They're going forward. They're not looking back. That's not the end of them. Blah, 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 blah. Leading to the entire women's property much to one by one make their way out, and some of them got to speak, some of them didn't. The main ones got their chance to speak. And then we get a Donnybrook. Alba Fire and Isla Dawn pretty much start it, and everybody else gets involved. We would eventually find out Cora Jade, yes, she was part of it too. But, wow, why did I just draw a blank?
Roxanne Perez.
Roxanne Perez, yes. Thank you. Sometimes I need a little help. Roxanne Perez would eventually come out and say, hey, just so you know, I just got back. I found out that there's going to be a battle royal next week, 20 women, and whoever wins that will be the first one to challenge me for the NXT Women's Championship. Of course, you get more brawling after that, and we get a commercial. When they come back, though, they only show two people brawling backstage. They don't even show what happened to the inside. Well, actually, I think it was a side-by-side, and they were still showing them fighting backstage. But eventually, Alba Fire and Isla Dawn would brawl from backstage out to the ring and get into the ring, and we'd start the Extreme Resolution match, as they call it. It was a crazy match. It was crazy everything that happened beforehand. I mean, they took some wild bumps backstage. Isla Dawn got knocked off of a ladder onto the concrete, I think is what it was, backstage.
Yes.
I was going to say through tables, but I don't think there was any tables or anything there. It was just concrete. It was nuts, just everything they did backstage and then out to the ring and the weapons they used. The most insane part of that match, though, came at the end of the match, in my opinion. Isla Dawn is placed on the table, and Alba Fire climbs up to the top rope. Isla Dawn sits up, has a smirk on her face, and lays back down, waiting for that swanton.
With a big old smile.
Yes. She gets a swanton. The table, though, as tables sometimes tend to do, didn't budge. Did not break. So Isla Dawn has to hit another move. Alba Fire has to hit another move to Isla Dawn through the table, the gory bomb, pretty much. And then rolls her in the ring and gets the 1, 2, 3. Tables can sometimes be a bitch. It seems like lately.
Yeah.
They do not want to break when you want them to break. But at least the superstars are able to work on the fly and able to figure something out to break the table if that is the intention to end the match. So kudos to them on that. As we mentioned in that NXT prediction show for the last Premium Live event they had, this isn't the end between these two. You know that for there's going to be a rubber match at some point. They're 1-1 right now. We figured Isla Dawn would win that first match. She did. And Elba Fire gets her payback here, but they're not done. You could tell just from the way things ended in that match.
Back to that setup for the Battle Royal match.
Yeah.
I will say, out of everyone that got to actually say something, the best line did not come out of Nikita Lyons. I'll admit it.
She had a pretty decent time, though.
I thought the best line came from Wendy Chu.
Okay.
When she called Cora Jade. What was the exact word? It ended with bitch, but just went right at Cora Jade, and that's what got everyone to just jump out into the ring.
Right? Yeah, I can't remember what exactly she called her either, but I remember that.
Something egotistical. But yeah, that was funny.
Yeah. Yeah, it was interesting that Wendy Chu was one of them that actually got to speak, too. I mean, they haven't really given her a whole lot of time in segments like that anyways. They give her some backstage stuff, but haven't really seen a whole lot otherwise.
Well, who do you think's going to win that Battle Royal?
Ooh, that is a good question. I don't know. I almost feel like...
Who do you think and who do you want?
Those are both good questions. It's going to be a heel because Roxanne's not going to end up facing a face. I don't know why, and this might not make total sense because she was the first woman to come out and interrupt Toxic Attraction. I almost feel like Indy Hartwell makes the full heel turn and joins Toxic Attraction and wins the Battle Royal.
Okay. So deep down, you know who I want to win the match.
Nikita, of course.
Of course. But I feel like, why not have Roxanne Perez's first title defense? You know, we've seen this before with her first big rival.
Cora Jade?
I could see Cora Jade winning it.
Yeah, that's possible.
But either way, it's going to make for a great Battle Royal. I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah. Definitely be interesting to see who the finalists are in the Battle Royal and who wins it, too. So,
oh, yeah.
Coming up this upcoming Tuesday night. And it's not just in the regular NXT episode. It's NXT New Year's Evil, by the way, as well. So some special stuff going on there.
Hopefully nothing too special. That comes later.
Yes, that will come later. After the Extreme Resolution match, you get Oro Mensah versus Javier Bernal, which was made earlier in the show. Big body Javi, if you will. He likes to call himself. I don't know why.
He doesn't know what big means.
Right? Oro Mensah I've seen quite a bit of when he was Oliver Carter back in NXT UK. I know he's a pretty good athlete. It's nice to see him in singles action here because he was mostly a tag team guy in NXT UK. I've been kind of impressed by him, but I don't feel like they've shown him enough since he got brought to NXT. But I also know a lot of the UK guys have had some visa issues, is why we haven't seen a lot of the UK guys recently. So maybe this is the trend of seeing more of them since he's back on TV. But we'll see. Mensah would pick up the win because Bernal, all he does is lose anyway. So pretty much.
Like your normal big body.
Yeah, right. Nothing really to take away from that match other than that, unless you had anything you want to put in there. But
I got enough of that match where they didn't deserve anything.
It doesn't.
No
offense to those guys, but you had a video showing the build to the match earlier in the show. The next match would be Andre Chase versus Drew Gulak. Gulak had been training some of the Chase University guys backstage. Andre Chase took exception to it, and that led to the match. These two had a really good match. I feel like from what happened last week on NXT and then what happens at the end of this one, we might be leading to a Drew Gulak heel turn, but it's almost a little more interesting whom he's kind of in the feud with going right now. And it's not Andre Chase either. Chase would lose the match. Gulak would get the win with the Gulak. And after the match, after Chase tapped out, Gulak did not release the hold right away. But Gulak was celebrating and along with Hank Walker afterwards outside the ring. It's who they walk into backstage. Charlie Dempsey, for anybody who doesn't know, William Regal's son. William Regal's back in the company, by the way. Just won't see him on TV until next year. But Charlie Dempsey, who was seen wearing a sling but pulled it off during that match, would go talking to Gulak because it was supposed to be Gulak and Charlie Dempsey this week on NXT originally. But Charlie Dempsey wasn't cleared. They had a little conversation backstage. It sounded like that match is still going to happen at some point in time. Gulak got his digs in at Dempsey in that injury, though, too. So I'm interested in seeing more of Dempsey. We haven't really seen a whole lot of him yet. He was, I think, used a little bit in NXT UK towards the end, but I stopped watching it once the pandemic happened for the most part. So I haven't really seen a whole lot of Dempsey period yet, but he kind of gives me not just his dad impersonation, but I feel who are the best people to kind of put it? I feel a little bit of Lance Storm in him, I think, in a way too.
Okay.
Wise and talking wise, but a few different things. I could see a little bit of Pete Dunne in him too, if that makes any sense there. Maybe it's just because they're both British. I don't know, but
no, it can't be it.
not at all, no. But anyway, yeah, that's that. We'll see where things go from here with Charlie Dempsey. I mean, it's nice that he's got his dad there to try and train him and help him along as well. You know, so anything you want to mention about that before I move into the main event match, and then we'll get into what happened at the end of the show as well.
I just can't wait to see Dempsey versus Gulak so I can see Gulak look like a little bitch.
Not a big Gulak fan, huh?
No, I hate Gulak.
I understand that. All right, so the main event match was, of course, made earlier in the show, and you had New Day. Actually, I think they said it happened before the show aired. Before the show started, they showed it. But New Day was backstage talking, and Joe Gacy and the Schism showed up because New Day hasn't had anything to say to the dyad about the tag team titles or tag team contention. Oh, to backtrack off of that a little bit before we go into the match, New Day did also have a little backstage segment with Pretty Deadly, the former tag team champions. And out of that, at New Year's Evil, Pretty Deadly gets to run the gauntlet match. They have to face 3 tag teams, and if they can get past them, then they will get a future NXT tag team title match. Who those tag teams will be, we'll have to wait and see because they did not announce who those teams will be.
Oh, we could probably figure that out.
Well, I figure Briggs and Jensen will probably be one of them from what it looks like.
Oh, for sure.
Maybe the dyad for another one, but I'm not sure about that. And I don't know. Who do you think will be the third one? Or the second and or third?
I don't think it's going to be an actual tag team. I think it's going to be 2 random people that we've seen give Pretty Deadly a run. And I think it's going to be... Oh, it can be. He's got a match already. Never mind. I was thinking of Lee and Breaker.
Oh, no. Oh. Breaker does have a match.
It might be Mello and Trick.
That could be. Mello isn't currently scheduled for anything, I don't know. Anyway, it would lead into the match, Kofi Kingston versus Joe Gacy. Joe Gacy had pretty good spots in this match, and I've been a critic of Joe Gacy's before. I'm still not a huge fan of Joe Gacy. I just feel like he's a bootleg Bray Wyatt for the most part. No offense, but to people who might disagree with that.
I wouldn't
But
put it in those words. I think there's a little more than just a bootleg Bray Wyatt there. I
yeah,
think there's a not so straight edge CM Punk as well.
I could see that. But anyway, they get their spots. The dyad would get involved at times. Woods was able to keep them off base, so as to speak. Kofi got a pretty nice SOS in there at one point. And of course, in the end, Kofi gets the Trouble in Paradise and gets a win.
On Gacy.
Yes. I think maybe it was the best match Gacy's had NXT, personally. I mean, he's had for other decent matches, but I still feel like this was probably his best match he's had.
I mean, he had a good match in the Iron Survivor, but I think just a basic match, yeah, it's probably one of his best.
The thing is, though, Gacy was the only one out of those 5 guys in the Iron Survivors match that didn't get a fall.
No, he got a fall.
Did he get one?
JD is the one that didn't get a fall.
Oh, JD, that's right. JD, that's right. You're right. But still, the other guys.
But who got that match winner right?
Yeah.
This guy.
Yeah. My guy was that close.
I know.
Mello was very close. But speaking of that guy that won the Iron Survivors men's match, he, of course, would have the main event, so as to speak, the closing segment of NXT. Did you want to say anything about the Kofi and Gacy match before I move into that first?
No, I think we covered all the aspects of that one.
All right, so then you get the Grayson Waller effect with, of course, his host, the host, Grayson Waller, with, of course, his guest being the NXT champion, Braun Breaker. Waller tried everything under his power to poke and prod the bear, so as to speak, try to get Breaker to lose his cool. But yet, Breaker was able to stay calm, cool, and collective for pretty much the entirety of the Grayson Waller effect until the very end. And Waller got his ass kicked. I will mention something about that here in a minute. What was your takeaway of that whole segment? And I mean, Breaker got in his slam, but not only that, I mean, he get the dive afterwards outside the ring before he holds up the title to close out the show.
I mean, Breaker was phenomenal, and it's just because of those moves that this next comment's not going to make sense, because Grayson Waller and the Grayson Waller effect is a bootleg, crappy version of Miz TV.
I'd agree.
The best part was Grayson Waller getting his butt whooped, just like when Miz does.
Right?
So, I mean, thank you, Braun Breaker, for doing what you do best. That's
Exactly.
whooping people's asses.
So, my takeaway from the ending of that, though, the feuds that we've seen Breaker in over the last year, leading into his title matches, usually the opponent gets the better of Breaker going into the match.
That's because it's finally happening.
That's what I'm afraid of. To me, this almost smells like and looks like it could lead to a Grayson Waller, God, I hate to say this, NXT Championship victory next week to close out NXT.
But if that happens, it could lead to a Braun Breaker debut at the Rumble.
Possibly, yes. Which I could see that happening. And I'd love to see. There's so many options for Breaker on Raw and or SmackDown. He could fan size on so many matches.
I think he gets a rivalry reinvigorated with Knight.
You think so?
Yeah.
Breaker and LA Knight? Yeah, that could be interesting.
Well, there is a prediction going around that Braun will enter the Rumble and then maybe 3 or 4 spots down, either his dad or his uncle's music will hit.
Oh, that would be interesting. See one of the Steiner brothers in the Rumble.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I haven't seen one of that happen since what, 94?
Yeah, something like that.
Oh wait,
I want to say that's probably. Or no, Scotty's been in the Rumble.
Yeah, because Scotty was in 04 when Benoit went all the way.
Yeah, yep. I think he was. But still, it's probably been since 94 since Rick Steiner's been in the Royal Rumble, though.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. So that was NXT. Should we do a rating or not?
I'd give it about probably a 6.
Yeah, I was thinking 6 as well. 6 out of 10.
Yeah. That's kind of on the high side of it.
Right. I mean, you get plenty of matches over the 2 hours, but it's just some of the competitors right now, I feel like, just aren't quite where we're used to seeing NXT competitors at, I guess you could say.
Yeah. I will say, though, that it's been the first time in a while that on NXT for sure that the women's division has been very interesting and competitive in like a long time.
Right? I mean, even though they only had 1 match on the show, whereas last week it was every other match was a women's match. They had like 3 or 4 matches last week, but that was also a tape show, but that's besides the point.
Right.
And this week was live. But yeah, I honestly, I think I'm a little more interested in the women's division than I am most of what's going on in the men's divisions right now in NXT. Because it seems like with Mandy now gone, that the women's division is just so wide open.
Oh, yeah.
Mandy seemed to control it for the most part of the last year plus otherwise. All right. There. To the next show. Move on to AEW Dynamite. All right. From Seattle, Washington this past week, the show would kick off with Y2J himself. Whatever nickname you want to give him here, because he's got so many of them nowadays. The champion.
I'm gonna call him Bridezilla from Masked Singer.
There you go. Chris Jericho, anyways, with 2.0 or whatever you want to call him. Matt Menard and Angelo Parker, anyways, in his corner. Facing off against Ricky Starks. Typical Jericho match here for the most part. Funny thing was, you see Floyd get brought in and try to get involved, and you see Parker and Menard try to get involved, and everything just seemed to backfire on the JAS for that entire match, honestly.
Sounds like a typical Jericho match.
Doesn't it, though?
Yeah.
For the most part. Leading into Ricky Starks getting the spear and getting the 1, 2, 3 on Chris Jericho. I would say... Now, I know we weren't doing this back a couple weeks ago when the biggest upset of the century happened. When Jericho lost to Action Andretti, who we'll get into a little bit in a second here. But I would say for Ricky Starks, he's been on quite a roll lately, but this, to me, is still the biggest win of his career thus far.
Oh, for sure. 100%.
He might have won that Battle Royal to kind of go for the Diamond Ring and the AEW World title, but this match, even bigger. I mean, Jericho is still one of the greatest competitors in this sport, in my opinion. So,
he's done everything. He's done it all.
Yes.
I mean, there's not going to be another Jericho.
Right. Very true. Of course, after the match, you get the rest of the Jericho Appreciation Society that comes out, and they beat down on Ricky Starks. Action Andretti comes out with a chair and gets the advantage for a little bit, but then you get Anna Jay and Ty Mello in there and a low blow and to Action Andretti, and Andretti and Starks both get taken out, leading into almost a shield bomb. But Hager takes forever to actually deliver the power bomb off the apron through the table to Ricky Starks. The match was really good. The aftermath, not so great for Andretti and Starks or for any of it, period. I felt like Hager he should have been able to deliver that powerbomb a lot better and quicker than what he did. But that's me nitpicking at Hager a little bit. What was your take on that whole match and segment?
Well, I mean, it was great. The whole thing was until Jake Hager decided he was going to be all that and take forever. I mean, all you had to do was pick him up, drop him down. It's not that hard. It's simple physics. Just do it.
Right. But no, Hager can't do that.
Oh, he's too busy swaggering.
I see what you did there. That's fun.
Yeah.
I will say this much: Action Andretti seems to be really over with the crowd, so I'm interested in seeing where they go with all of this with him to see what goes on with Action Andretti. So that is something I feel like AEW has done pretty well over the last 3+ years that they've been in business, is actually show off some of their newer talent, homegrown talent. Maybe not everybody to the liking of the crowd, to people watching, but a lot of them, they do show pretty well and pretty good spot. Right. We would go from there. Tony Schiavone would have Hangman Adam Page come out and talk to him in the ring, which would lead to Moxley coming out. Hangman saying he wasn't cleared quite yet. Yes, Moxley, former Ambrose. Hangman saying he's not quite cleared yet. In 1 week, he should be. He's just got to go through that one last hurdle and get the final clearance to be in the match. Moxley coming out, and I mean, that promo those two had, you could tell those two are itching for a fight, that they had to hold themselves back for that whole segment. It almost, to me, feels like you could play off as a real life hatred. It feels like a Matt Hardy Edge type situation.
Yeah.
Just to build off of something that we've seen in the past. These two really seem to hate each other, which you can kind of understand. I mean, Moxley knocked Hangman out. And Hangman's main thing isn't that he got knocked out. It's the fact that he couldn't remember his son's name for like 3 minutes after that. This got really personal with Hangman just from that. And Moxley keeps trying to play it off as like a joke and saying, hey, I just did what I'm supposed to do. So this match that is going to happen this upcoming Wednesday. Anything you want to add to that before I move into what happened after that promo?
Well, we got that covered.
All right. Then go on, show a little preview for the main event. Joe talking. You get the Acclaimed out to defend the AEW World Tag Team titles against Double J and Lethal. And you get your typical TNA match here, pretty much, as you'll get from Jeff Jarrett wise lately, it seems like. So many people out at ringside. I mean, you got Billy Gunn, Daddy Ass. You got Satnam Singh. You got Sanjay Dutt. One referee that shouldn't have been just one referee. I mean, obviously we see that later as the referee got taken out. All kinds of crazy shenanigans happen. The referees end up ejecting Daddy Ass and then end up ejecting Satnam Singh, and the referee corps comes out to try and get Satnam Singh to leave. Some shenanigans happen in the ring, and the referee finally gets back in the ring, counts the 1-2. Should have been not a 3, but it was a 3 as Sanjay Dutt pushed, I think it was Anthony Bowen's leg off the bottom rope. We get new tag team champions, or so they think. Aubrey Edwards comes in, tells Stephon Smith, "Hey, you missed that call. Anthony Bowen's leg was on the rope. That should have been the ref. The count should have stopped. Match needs to continue. The match continues, and you see the Acclaim pick up the victory from there quickly. So, where do we go from there? I mean, the match was the match. It was all kinds of craziness.
Yeah, it was a typical TNA match.
Yes. The right team won. That's pretty much all I'll say about that. No offense to Jeff Jarrett, because he's really good at what he does, but the Acclaimed is a really good tag team, and I feel like they should be facing other tag teams instead of Jarrett and Lethal right now. But I mean, they built all this off of that rap where Max Caster mentions Jarrett's previous family, Karen Jarrett's previous family. Karen.
Angle.
But yeah, that is what it is. We'll get into more of those two teams in a little bit as well. But all right, you get a couple other statements. Tony Schiavone talking to Hayter and Britt Baker. Jungle Boy and Hook talk backstage. Well, Jungle Boy talked, I should say, and Hook came in at the end of it just because Jungle Boy and Hook will team up next week. Then you move on to Tony Nese versus Bryan Danielson. And honestly, that match started off really quick. It looked like Tony Nese might have things going his way, but you just knew there was no way Bryan Danielson was going to lose that match that quick and easy, just because Tony's friends were out there distracting him. But it would lead into Danielson doing what Bryan does and kicking Tony Nese's ass and kicking up the win. Not much else you can say about that match, I feel like, but
no, not at all.
It's what we got after the match that was more interesting than the actual match itself. Bryan saying he's feeling froggy, he wants another match, and calls out, of course, the AEW World Champion who was obligated to be in the arena that night, MJF. And MJF comes out and says, Bryan, you can get your championship match if, of course, he's got to throw out the hurdles because it's MJF. He's always got hurdles. If Bryan Danielson can win his next 5 matches the next 5 weeks on Dynamite. Bryan smartly, in my opinion, because many people don't do this, but Bryan was the smart one here, says, okay, I'll agree to jump through your hurdles if I can choose the stipulation to our match at Revolution. MJF agrees because he doesn't think that there's anything that Bryan can pick that will hurt him pretty much or affect him, which leads to Bryan Danielson saying, when I win my next 5 matches, you and I will face off for the AEW World Championship at Revolution. I will expose you for the fraud that you are in a 60-minute Iron Man match. The facial expression of MJF changed, and he did not seem happy at all with that decision. I mean, Danielson's obviously going to beat all 5 of these guys. I mean, it starts with Konosuke Takeshita this upcoming week on Dynamite, which it's going to be a great match because these 2 guys are both very technically sound wrestlers. But I personally am looking forward to seeing the first ever Iron Man match in AEW and see how they go with it. I mean, put Bryan Danielson in there, he easily can go 60 minutes. You know that, and you might know that. So, what was your takeaway from that segment?
I mean, my main takeaway was MJF just being the little weenie he is.
Yeah.
Man, that was like the biggest thing. It's like, oh, you're going to put a hurdle. We all know Daniel Bryan's going to win those 5 matches. And then you basically give him the... I'm sorry. MJ, do you really think you're going to even have a shot in any match? It's Bryan Danielson, the Red Dragon.
The American Dragon.
No shot. Oh my God, the American Dragon.
Yeah. I mean, I won't be... I hate to say it, but I won't be surprised if MJF somehow manages to pull out the win at Revolution. Just saying. I can't see his time in that quick, but
MJF needs to go back to being MJF needs to go back to being one of the security guards for Goldberg.
I knew that's where you were heading with that. With who? He's not even under contract with WWE anymore. Yes. I think it was. All right. So we move on from there to Swerve Strickland with his Mogul affiliates facing off against AR Fox. If you're not a fan of flippy stuff, then you wouldn't enjoy this match too much, I would say. But AR Fox is an incredible athlete. I haven't seen a whole lot of him. I mean, I know about AR Fox because I've seen stuff about him on social media a lot. But that guy, in the few matches I've seen him in AEW, to me seems like he should be a guy that should be competing for like the TNT title, in my opinion. I don't think Tony Khan's quite used him the best way thus far. He's had really good matches. He hasn't gotten a whole lot of wins in singles action yet, but he just keeps impressing me anyways. I don't know about everybody else, but he looked impressive here, even in defeat to Swerve Strickland, in my opinion. Of course, Swerve's got this whole new faction going too, so we'll see where that goes. With the former Harlan. Go ahead.
It was just a lot of flippy. I mean, if you can't keep up with the flippy, you're not going to have fun watching the match.
Right. It was a pretty good match, I felt like, though.
Oh, it was a good match.
Yeah. Right. So from there, they'd go on to Renee talking backstage with Saraya, Tony Storm and Hikaru Shida. And Saraya would go on to choose her partner would be next week in the forum to face Britt Baker and Jamie Hayter. She would say something about I believe she put best women's wrestler in AEW.
Mm-hmm.
And picked Tony Storm over Hikaru Shida, who is a former AEW Women's World. Well, they're both former AEW Women's World Champions, but Shida held the title a lot longer than Storm did. So the reaction that Shida had, though, afterwards, I almost feel like, and I've kind of felt like for a little while now, they might pull the trigger on a Hikaru Shida heel turn in that tag team match next week. I can see that happen. Her coming in there and costing Storm and Saraya the match.
And it wasn't just Shida's reaction. It was everyone that back there.
Right? It just feels like something's building between those three alone, not just putting in Britt Baker and Jader and Rebel, of course, as well. But move on from there. Then you have the Guns come out and do their little FTRIP funeral. I don't really have much to say about that one. I mean, they towards the end of the promo play FTR's music, and the crowd goes crazy because they're a bunch of idiots because there's no chance FTR was going to be there when they're in Japan. But whatever. The Guns claim they're the new top guys. Blah, 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 blah. That's about it. Unless you want to put any sense into that.
It was just a big smoking gun.
Pretty much. Nice. I didn't catch that right away, but I did catch that. Nice. All right. So we move on from there. You get Sky Blue and Kiera Hogan. Kiera, of course, a former baddie, going up against Red Velvet and the TBS champion Jade Cargill. Yawn City. Oh, did I say that? For anybody who doesn't know, who might be watching this, I'm not a Jade Cargill fan. I haven't been since she started. I know a lot of people were saying her match on Rampage, which we'll get in, or excuse me, on Battle of the Belts, which we'll get into later, was really good, but I don't share that sentiment. But that's me. Jade gets the win here. She's having issues with Red Velvet. Red Velvet walked out on her in this match, but Jade still picks up the win. Anything you want to add to it?
How do I put this nicely? Jade sucks.
Right?
I mean,
agree.
That just sums it up right there.
Yep. All right, so we move on from that. Renee Paquette is backstage with Jeff, Jarrett, Jay Lethal, Sonjay Dutt, and Satnam Singh. Jeff and Jay are demanding a rematch for the tag team titles, which automatically gets made for Battle of the Belts, a rematch that's no holds barred.
I will say this. It's nice seeing Jay Lethal not being a part of a woo-off.
Right? Though that still gets played all the time in highlights on the TV programming.
Oh, yeah.
All right. So we move into the main event. They mention as Darby Allin comes out that he's greeted Nick Wayne, who is the son of his Darby's mentor / trainer, one of his mentors and trainers. Nick Wayne's only 17, they mention as well, because he's somebody that signed a futures contract with AEW and will be in AEW, just like Brody Lee has signed a futures contract, I know, as well. Samoa Joe comes out. Of course, Joe has to kind of like pie face Nick, whatever he did to him. But Darby would then, of course, hit a move through the ropes and go after Samoa Joe on the outside of the ring. Them two would brawl outside the ring for a while, including Darby climbing up to the top of a ladder and hitting Joe off the top of the ladder. Yeah, it got pretty physical before the match actually started. But once the match got started, then Joe kind of dominated for the most part until the end of the match. And I personally was surprised, even though they were in Darby's hometown, I was still surprised that Darby Allin actually hit the coffin drop, not once but twice, and pinned Samoa Joe to win back the TNT Championship. It was a pretty good match, though. I'll give him that.
It was not just a good match. It was dynamite.
Punny, punny, punny. So now Darby Allin's a 2-time TNT champion. You get Sting to come out and celebrate with him. After the show went off the air, Darby had Nick Wayne come into the ring and celebrate with him, and he spoke to his crowd. All that good stuff since he was home. Honestly, so that's everything that happened on Dynamite. I would say it was a really good episode of Dynamite to kick off 2023. If I was to rate it, I'd probably give it an 8 out of 10. I'd say it was a little bit better than Raw.
I'd actually give about a 7.
You think so?
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe a 7.5.
Fair enough. Nice. A lot of big takeaways from that leading into next week's big Dynamite episode. So. I mean, I could go over it real quick. The big main event, of course, of Dynamite this upcoming week, you got the ladder match. I'm not even going to try and pronounce it because I'd probably butcher it. But the trios ladder match, best match number 7 in the best of 7 series between the Elite and Death Triangle, where the winning team will walk out as the AEW Trios Tag Team Champions. So, where's Buster Boy when you need him? Oh.
I know, right? Young Bucks. What can I say about the Young Bucks? The Young Bucks.
Right. But yeah, it'll be a big episode of Dynamite. That's for sure. They got other matches that are lined up. Like mentioned, Jungle Boy and Hook will be against W. Morrissey, Big Bill, whatever you want to call him, and Lee Johnson. So
I'm just going to call him Cass.
There you go. Among other matches they announced as well, but those are the 2 ones. Moving on, Friday Night SmackDown kicks off pretty much the same way Monday Night Raw did. You got the Bloodline coming out there, except for they just flipped over the cowl off the announce table and knocked over the steps. I think that was about it. And then Roman's music hits, and out comes Roman and Paul Heyman. A little unexpected because they didn't advertise Roman Reigns being on SmackDown this week. But hey, he's the head of the table. He goes where he wants. Goes up when he wants to. We have to dive into this promo, though, because Roman kind of went off on Sammy.
It was not very oozy.
No, it was not very oozy at all. He kind of let Sammy try to explain himself at first, but then just Roman, like that, as he does sometimes, just kind of snapped and got all up in his grill until KO came out. But it's what KO had to say and what it led to that kind of was a bigger point in this whole segment. I mean, Kevin comes out and says, hey, you don't have an issue with Sammy. You've been saying it for weeks. You got a KO problem, not a Sammy problem. So why don't you take care of this KO problem at the Royal Rumble and put the WWE Undisputed Universal Championship on the line? To which Roman doesn't flinch. He immediately says, that whatever I have to do to get you out of my hair, pretty much. Then we're good. We can go. But KO just was out there kind of casually suggesting this match. And Roman accepts it right away just because he was being a hothead, pretty much. It's like, geez, if it was that easy, then why haven't people done something like that in the past, you know? But KO promises, well, okay, so I got my match. I'll leave you guys. You can deal with your stuff, and I'll just leave the arena. Bye. And leaves. Which he must have done because we didn't see him again during the night. But that pretty much covers that. Anything you want to mention from that promo? That whole segment.
No.
Okay. Of course, they showed highlights of the main event from the week before as well, before Roman went off on Sammy. But they showed Charlotte arriving backstage, show a video of Kofi Kingston and Santos Escobar talking backstage from earlier in the night, leading into the first match of the night, Kofi versus Santos Escobar. Santos claiming in that promo that he would be eliminating Kofi Kingston from the Royal Rumble match. That kind of was the whole precipice of this entire match for the most part. I mean, Kofi did his Royal Rumble saves a couple different times in the match. Santos got eliminated, if you want to a couple of different times in the match. Got clotheslined over the top to the floor. He saved himself on the steps only to have Woods play Francesca, the trombone, behind him and scare him off the steps, which would have eliminated him. These two, again, also had a really good match, and I feel like they're shining a light on Legato here since they end up having, at the end, Kofi would get beat by Santos Escobar, which is a huge victory for Santos to pick up a win over a former WWE champion. Anything specific that you took out of that match that I didn't mix?
I mean, the only thing that can really be said is that's going to probably be Santos' biggest win. And it sucks for Kofi, but it was a great match nonetheless.
Right? I mean, Kofi didn't need the win. He's one half the NXT Tag Team Champions. We already know he's going to have a good showing in the Royal Rumble. I mean, as long as he doesn't screw up like he did last year anyways. But that's rare to happen again. All right. From there, you go on to the Bloodline while Sammy talking to Paul Heyman backstage. The Usos show up, and the Usos are allowed to go into Roman's locker room, where Sammy's not allowed to go in right then. Sammy and Heyman just play off of each other so well in those backstage segments. Any segment, really, that you see those two with. Anything that you took from that segment before I move into, I'm sure, your favorite segment of the night?
We can move on to the next segment, please.
Okay, we will then. You get Liv Morgan, who is the first woman to declare herself to be in the Royal Rumble match, but not only does she declare herself in the Royal Rumble match, she's crazy enough that she wants to enter number 1 because she wants to show her extreme side to all 29 other competitors in the Royal Rumble match. I mean, it makes sense for the persona that we've seen from Liv lately. So, does that mean she is entering number 1? No. But it would be interesting to see Liv Morgan enter number 1 and number 2 in there.
I would say, though, but it'd be a good potential for the Iron Man spot since your usual women's Iron Man won't be a part of it because Bianca's got the belt.
Right.
Which, I mean, she could still enter, but we're probably not going to happen because she's not Charlotte.
Right.
But, I mean, it'd be someone you wouldn't expect to have the Iron Woman spot.
Right. That's true.
So, I mean, I'm looking for a good showing from Liv.
Yeah, it should be. I mean,
I'm just happy to see Liv compete, so yeah.
The year that she's had, there's no reason not to give her a good spotlight in the Royal Rumble match, in my opinion. Is she going to win? More than likely, no. But
Final 5, for sure.
I could see
that.
that.
She's going to be there near the end.
I could see that. But then again, you probably figured the same for Sasha Banks last year, and that didn't happen so much, though.
Who?
Yeah, we'll dive into her more later. All right. So move on from that. Kayla Braxton talks to LA Knight backstage about the whole Mountain Dew with the Pitch Black match that's coming up at the Royal Rumble between him and Bray Wyatt. You don't see Bray Wyatt or Uncle Howdy, either one here, but LA Knight just talks about it. This is a typical LA Knight promo here. Nothing else really to take away from that.
All you got to do, I'm going to get crap for this one, but all you got to do about this match, you know where I'm going with this, don't you?
Maybe.
You just got to. So in the Pitch Black match, all you got to do is believe.
Sure. All right, move along, shall we? We move into the mixed tag team match. You get Scarlett and Karrion Kross versus Emma and Madcap Moss. I was pretty impressed by what you've seen out of Scarlett in this match. I know she's wrestled before in, I want to say in TNA or Impact, whatever you want to call it. I didn't really see a whole lot of that, so I haven't really seen her in wrestling before because she never did in NXT. So I was pretty impressed by what she did here against Emma in that mixed tag team match. So I want to see more of Scarlett in the ring and see what she's capable of in a singles match going forward. And she could be a threat, is what it looked like to me.
You never know. She could be an entrant in the Rumble.
Possibility. The end would come, of course, with Cross locking Madcap in the cross jacket and choking Madcap out, as he mentioned for the third time. Afterwards, Afterwards, Scarlett would bring in the mask, and Karrion would put it on Madcap, sending a message to Rey Mysterio, bringing out the tarot card, saying, "Hooray! Tick tock, you're running out of time. You know this is going to be you coming soon." So, the message was there. Anything else that you had taken out of that match?
Not really.
Okay. Then they would show the media coverage announcing that Money in the Bank will take place in London, England in the O2 Arena on July 1st this year, which will be the first time that they'll have a major premium live event in London in like 20 years, I think they said, or something like that. A long time, anyway. And then they would show Sheamus and Drew talking in Jerry the King Lawler's bar. And they kept chopping or slapping each other on the chest and back and firing each other up as they're mentioning all their history. I'm almost surprised they didn't get into a fight with somebody, but I mean, at least they did have all the people that were in the bar get involved by doing the banger after banger after banger chants. Then you get the coronation of your new SmackDown Women's Champion, as Charlotte Flair gets to come out and brag about how she's a 14-time Women's Champion now, because we don't count the NXT title reign for whatever reason. Only to be interrupted by the real fighter, as she put it, Sonya Deville. And Sonya challenges Charlotte to fight her and put the title on the line. Charlotte agrees. We get a mediocre match, honestly. It wasn't terrible, but it wasn't great either. Let's put it that way.
There was no real flair.
Yes. Full of puns tonight, I see.
I mean, we gotta have some kind of entertainment. We don't got busted.
I know, right? Shame on him. But anyway, Charlotte would pick up the win with the figure 8. See that coming. Like go from here to somebody else to Charlotte off and get to sit and watch them. We got a few weeks to go. They then show the Cody Rhodes on Raw, and then show a video of Lacey Evans training in the Performance Center with a bunch of the NXT women, locking in the Cobra Clutch, as it looks like it might be her finisher moving forward whenever she returns to SmackDown. Anything you want to mention before I move into the next match?
Let's go.
You get a rare, these days it seems like, Royal Rumble qualifying match next, as it's Ricochet, one and only, versus Top Dollar of Hit Row. Again, another good match. Not anything past that, really. Kind of a short match, really, when I'm looking at it that way. Ricochet picks up the win after a shooting star press off the top rope. Top Dollar looked good at the beginning parts of the match, but after the match is what was a little more interesting than what happened during the match, in my opinion. Anyway, Top Dollar helps Ricochet up and then kind of raises his hand, only for Ashante the Adonis to hit a kick on Ricochet, and all three members of Hit Row then attack Ricochet, including D-Fab. Gets some shots in as well. They hit their finisher on him, look like they're going to do more, but Braun Strowman comes out and returns the favor for Ricochet, running off Hit Row. As they actually gave Hit Row the heel turn here.
Hit Row.
Yeah. I honestly feel like Hit Row was much better with Swerve than they are without.
For sure.
It's no offense to them. I mean, Top Dollar just doesn't have enough experience, in my opinion. He's still kind of a rookie. And Ashante the Adonis, he's pretty good wrestler, but in a tag team, you can't just have one good wrestler, I feel like, and just let Top Dollar be the heavy, if you will. But
what are you talking about? I can think of another team that was like that.
Yeah.
Shinsuke Nakamura and Rick Boogs.
That's a little bit different, I would say, but I could understand that. It'll be interesting to see if that those two get put together as a tag team again going forward once Rick Boogs is back from injury, by the way, which should be soon, I do believe.
Oh, only if there was a pay-per-view he could return that no one would expect.
Oh, gee, I wonder if that could happen.
I wonder, man.
Right.
They should just make this year a 40-man Rumble.
There was talks of doing that, of doing 40 men and 40 women, but for whatever reason, they decided not to, I guess.
Oh, that sucks.
We're not at the Royal Rumble yet, though, so that could change.
Go big or go home.
Okay. Well, if you want to go that far, I mean, they did have the greatest Royal Rumble in Saudi and had 50 competitors. But... yeah, I know. We don't talk about it.
It may have been called that, but it was.
Yeah. No, that match, there's only one thing that people remember from that match, really. Well, maybe two, but one main thing.
What, Daniel Bryan lasted from 1 to the final 3?
No. Titus World Slide? Of course, because Titus went under the ring during his intro. I mean, yes, you can mention Daniel Bryan doing that as well and Braun Strowman winning the match, but Titus is the main thing that people think of when they think of that match, in my opinion.
Yep, because Braun last eliminated W. Morrissey.
That is who he last eliminated, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I forgot about that.
Because Morrissey knocked, because Cass took out Bryan.
Ah, yes, he did, didn't he? Yeah.
That started that little feud.
Yeah. Then after Braun made the save, go backstage to the Bloodline talking again, and Roman telling Paul Heyman to call Sami in. And then we get the preview video for the Intercontinental Championship match next week between Strowman and Gunther. And then you get the Roman, Sami, and Paul Heyman segment backstage. Roman Sami comes in and apologizes to Roman and says that he's not trying to be the tribal chief or trying to act like him or anything else. And Roman says, no, I don't accept your apology because I'm the one that needs to apologize. As Roman actually apologizes for the way he treated Sami at the beginning of the show. The Usos theme music hits. Sami says, oh, that's my cue. I need to go. And Roman tells him, no, just sit here. We're going to watch this match together. So, leading into the main event, the Usos defending the undisputed WWE Tag Team titles against Sheamus and Drew McIntyre. How'd Sheamus put it? I know he gave them a name. Yeah. You can tell me because I can't think of it off the top of my head.
I can't remember it.
You can't. I might be able to find it here. I should be able to remember it because I know it's the name they're going with for him. It sounds like. Then he was an honorary member of the Brutes for the night. Let's see. If I could a shimmer, if it lets me.
The Banger Bros.
Banger after banger. He's actually got that behind his. The Banger Bros, yes, the Banger Bros. I knew it was something like the Banger Bros versus the Usos. Was there anything you wanted to mention about the backstage promos before go fully into this match?
Let's dive in.
Huh?
Let's dive
into the match? Okay.
Yeah.
So, yeah. This was, again, another, seems to be a common trend, another match of the night, so as to speak. Easily, this one was, in my opinion. Sheamus and Drew got their moves in. The Usos got their moves in. It looked like Drew was going to win the tag team titles when he hit the Claymore on, I think it was Jey Uso. And Jimmy came in right at the last split second to break it up. And then it looks like Drew was taken out on the outside of the ring. The Usos managed to hit the 1B on Sheamus and go for the 1, 2, 3, but Drew gets in there and breaks it up at the last split second. Nobody's ever broken out that move yet or kicked out of that move today, as it should be. We've seen super kicks. We've seen Claymores, the Glasgow Kiss, the Brogue Kick. One big spot in the match, you had both Drew and Sheamus at the same time in opposite corners hit the Celtic Cross off the second rope to the Usos. That was a huge spot, in my opinion. This is where I felt like Drew and Sheamus fucked up, though, because they came out there alone. The Usos did not. Drew goes to the outside of the ring, right by Solo Sikoa. The referee's attention gets diverted, and Solo hits a Samoan spike on Drew. And then a spinning Solo onto the barricade, which took Drew out of the match. Butch and Ridge Holland both come out. They go after Solo and knock Solo over the barricade all through to the back. But the Usos would manage to... Jimmy would roll up Sheamus, and Jay, using the feet from behind, pushing on his brother's butt to make sure he gets a 1, 2, 3. Usos retain the tag titles.
And then Sammy throws the popcorn all over the room.
Yes, Sammy True. Let's say. I mean, that was the interesting part of the match was you see at one point Sammy's just eating popcorn out of the bucket back there, tries to hand it to Roman. Roman's like, I don't want that. And then the next shot, you see of him back there. Sammy's got his bucket of popcorn. Paul Heyman sitting next to him with a bucket of popcorn. Roman's sitting over here with a bucket of popcorn. They're all eating popcorn watching the match. Sammy even threw a piece of popcorn at the TV. He didn't like what was going on.
It was popping.
It was popping back in the head of the table's locker room, yes. A banger of a match they had in the main event of SmackDown. Still, if I'm going to rank it before I mention what happened afterwards, I'd have to say this show, for me, felt like we said 7.5 for Raw. I'll say 7 here for SmackDown. I felt like Raw was a little bit better than SmackDown, matches-wise. To me, Santos and Kofi had a really good opening match, but it wasn't quite on par to the women's match that we had on Raw, and then the tag team match was outstanding. But the in-between just didn't hit as good as what Raw's did, in my opinion. What I seen, what they showed on social media happened afterwards was for some reason Sheamus and Drew got themselves back up, but they got assaulted by the Viking Raiders when the show went off the air. So Sheamus and Drew might be going into a new rivalry with the Viking Raiders now, for whatever reason.
We all know the Usos are losing the title at Mania to the Paul brothers. Let's be realistic here.
I agree with their losing the titles at Mania, but I don't think it's going to be to Logan and Jake.
It's going to be the debut of the Motor City Machine Guns.
Sure.
I would love that.
I think it's going to be a little Usi night that night. Let's put it that way.
Usi? Like, are we talking Usi with a little knockout?
Yep. You can put it that way. We'll see. All right. Move on.
But that would be a dream match, though. Usos versus Motor City Machine Guns.
Yeah, it would be. I'd agree with that. Yeah. I mean, Machine Guns have been winning gold pretty much everywhere lately, it seems like, so. Why not? All right. Move into the final shows of Friday night. Rampage, which kicks off with Bryan Danielson already in the ring, and you got Top Flight in the ring. Moxley making his way to the ring. And Dante Martin actually attacks Moxley, jumping over the ring post, knocking Moxley onto his ass, and then the brawl starts right away. These two teams put on a really good match. I was surprised by that because Moxley and Claudio had a really good match with Top Flight on Dynamite last week. I feel like Top Flight is the tag team to watch this year in AEW in the tag team division, and I can see them easily winning tag team gold in the very near future. Unfortunately, they lost here again as Bryan Danielson, Darius Martin pass out in the like STF. It wasn't an STF fully, but it was similar to it. The Regal Stretch, I think, is pretty much what it was.
Yeah.
So, I mean, these guys in the Blackpool Combat Club have been making Top Flight look great in the last couple weeks. I mean, even going back to Rampage last week when Top Flight won the the Christmas Battle Royal, anyways, 2 weeks ago. Sorry, not last week. But it was a really good opening contest for Rampage. Got anything you want to add into that match?
I mean, it was good, but it could have been better.
Yeah.
But with the people that were with the talent in the match, yeah, it could have been a little better.
Gotcha. I felt like maybe they just would have had a little bit more time, then maybe they could have been better. But all right. So I haven't seen any comments. I think that would tell me there. Moving into the next match, you got the Renegade Sisters, Charlotte and Robin versus Britt Baker and Jamie Hayter. Another women's match that AEW put on. Britt Baker and Jamie Hayter pick up the win. Britt hits the curb stomp on Charlotte after Jamie hit her finisher on her. 1, 2, 3. Britt and Jamie win. It was a match.
Yeah, it was a match. I mean, there's not much more you can say about it.
Right? Just like the next match it was a match. It was a very quick squash match, but it was a match.
Yeah, exactly.
Preston Vance beating Sonico. What do you take of the whole heel turn for Preston Vance and leaving the Dark Order to join La Faction and Angular Nobody?
I don't like it.
No?
I thought it was better with the Dark Order.
Okay. I think it's a good change of pace for him, but we'll see what happens. I mean, to me, I feel like though he should be using a different finisher instead of the discus lariat because he's going to keep getting comparisons to the Dark Order and Brody Lee as long as he's using that. But let's
Right.
then go into the main event match of Rampage. You got Mike Bennett of the Kingdom with Maria Kanellis, Bennett, and Matt Taven in his corner going up against Darby Allin for the TNT Championship, which apparently Bennett had backstage after Dynamite. Interrupted a Darby Allin interview and issued the challenge for this match and got it. This was pretty much a Darby Allin-esque match, if you will. Mike Bennett had some really good spots, though. One of the spots that stood out mostly to me, the side Russian leg sweep off the apron. That was something I don't think I've ever seen somebody actually do before. It looked like it hurt both guys quite a bit.
It barely touched.
Yeah, sure it is. I mean, you mentioned that Darby at one point went for a dive and is faster than a speeding bullet dives that he always does. It took out Matt Taven because Taven pushed Bennett out of the way. And then towards the end of the match, Darby went for the coffin drop. Maria actually got in the ring over and laid on top of Mike. Didn't think Darby would do it. Darby just sits down and looks at her. It's like, eh. He was going to actually do it. Of course, the referee is trying to get Maria out, so Matt Taven was able to hit a kick and knock Darby off the top rope. But that was all for naught because Darby would eventually hit the coffin drop with the 1, 2, 3 and beat Mike Bennett to end Rampage. Anything you want to add to any of that show?
It was very interesting near the ending. I mean, Maria's not the smartest.
True.
And just for her to think, oh, I'm going to get in the way, it's going to stop everything. Clearly, she doesn't know who Darby Allin is.
Right.
So, it made her look so stupid, and it was just comedic.
Yeah, I'd agree. Yeah, what do you think of Darby coming out here lately on his own, though, and not having Sting come out with him? I mean, he had to know Matt Taven was going to be out there with Bennett.
I feel like it's kind of showing a little more growth in Darby, saying that it's nice to have Sting, but that you can actually go out there and compete and not have to worry about someone being there to back you up. It shows how much he's grown over the time being in AEW.
Right. So, yeah, I almost feel like I don't need to rank these two shows, but Rampage, if I did a ranking out of 10, I'd probably give it a 5.
I'd give it a 6.
Would you?
Yeah.
I mean, the first match and the last match are the only two worth watching, really, in my opinion. So, if anybody was going to go watch it and hadn't seen it. All right, moving on to Battle of the Belts. We got 3 matches left, and then we'll talk a little bit more about a couple other things before we close out here. Jay Lethal and Jeff Jarrett went against the Acclaimed in a no-holds-barred match for the tag team titles. The rematch from Dynamite. You get all kinds of shenanigans again. The Acclaimed ends up retaining anyway. That's the main thing of it. And then Aubrey does the scissoring with the Acclaimed and Daddy Ass. Whoopee! Anything else you want to add to that one?
Nah.
I'm not going to mention much about the next match either. Jade Cargill beats Sky Blue to retain the TBS championship. Sky Blue looked pretty decent at times in that match, but we knew that Jade wasn't the title there.
So basically, that match was a big steaming pile of crap.
Pretty much. And then you move into their Battle of the Belts 5 main event, the only match worth watching, really, out of the three from Battle of the Belts. No offense to the Acclaim, but I said what I said because all you got to do is watch the Dynamite tag team title match, and you pretty much got. Okay, I'll give you this. There was one thing that stood out in that tag team title match. That was Satnam Singh doing a double choke slam to the Acclaimed and also choke slamming the referee. That was the thing that stood out the most. And then the scissor. Main event, you got Kip Sabian versus Orange Cassidy for the AEW All Atlantic Championship. Kip, of course, got Penelope Ford in this corner, and Orange Cassidy has Danhausen in his. These two had a really good match. I would say the best match out of both shows, Rampage and Battle of the Belts, in my opinion. No offense to Darby and Mike Bennett, but I just felt like this one was a little bit better. Many people know I've been a critic of Orange Cassidy. I'm not a huge fan of his, but I'm growing on him a little. He's growing on me a little. In the end, I mean, you see the Bunny get involved. You see the Butcher and the Pig get involved. Best Friends get involved in this match. But still, Orange and Kip Sabian were able to shut out all the distractions, if you will, and put on a really good match. Kip Sabian used the Orange Punch on Orange. Orange would eventually deliver 2 Orange Punches, I think it was, to finally put away Kip Sabian and retain his All Atlantic Championship. That was that. Anything you had to add from that match or that show?
No, I can't say I do. I mean, it's nice to see Orange Cassidy still having the title.
Right. All right. Yeah. I'd probably give that about the same, probably about a 5 again.
Yeah.
So, that's WWE and AEW. Was there anything from either one of those two promotions that you wanted to mention before I move into another company that I wanted to talk a little bit about?
No.
Good. All right. So there was another big event that took place over the last week. That was, of course, on January the 4th, when you had New Japan Pro Wrestling, Wrestle Kingdom 14. A big show. They had a lot of matches. I see. One big thing that happened, though, Kyrie, former Kyrie Sane, as many people know it, defeated Tam Nakano to retain the IWGP Women's Championship in a short match. It was only a 6-minute match, less than. But it's what happened after the match that everybody was talking about. As the former Sasha Banks made her New Japan Pro Wrestling debut, Mercedes Moné coming out to talk to and lay out Kyrie. No longer the boss, she's now the CEO, apparently, of the women's division in New Japan. So. What was your whole take on Mercedes' debut in New Japan? What do you think it's going? Where do you think she's going to go from here? I guess you could say. I mean, obviously we know she's got the title match.
I mean, as much as I would love to see her come back to WWE, I feel like she's not.
Right?
I mean,
unfortunately,
I feel like she's gonna be in New Jersey, or not New Jersey, New Japan, New Japan, and I feel like eventually she's gonna transition. I wouldn't be surprised if down the line we see her all elite.
Possibly. I mean, there's still some people think that she'll show up and actually be Soraya's partner this week, but I highly doubt that.
I guess we will find out.
Yes, we will. be interesting to see where she goes. I mean, I was happy for the support that she's got. I mean, I've seen the pictures. Bailey was there to support her in Japan, and they did their classic picture with FTR backstage afterwards. So that was pretty cool. Talk a little bit more. Like that was the big news that came out of Wrestle Kingdom 17. It was actually night 1, I should mention. FTR lost the IWGP Tag Team titles that night to Hiroki Gato and Yoshihashi. Zack Sabre Jr. beat Ren Narita in tournament finals to become the inaugural New Japan Pro Wrestling World Television Champion. Then he joined up with TMDK, I should say, the Mighty O'Neil, in Hayes and Mikey Nichols, who we know used to be part of NXT and WWE, Slapjack. Is that Tama Tonga defeated Carl Anderson to become the new never openweight champion? I think mainly that was because Carl's probably done with New Japan going forward now that he's part of WWE. A 6-man tag. Let's see. Kenny Omega, of course, defeated Will Ospreay to become the new IWGP United States Heavyweight Champion. And in their main event, Kazuchika Okada defeated Jay White to become the new IWGP World Heavyweight Champion. Big things there. They've got a second. They do 2 nights for Wrestle Kingdom, but their second night's not until January 21st. Which is weird that they do it that far later.
It's a little spaced out there.
Yeah, it is. And that second night must not be that big because it doesn't even look like they've got any title matches on there, but they still call it Wrestle Kingdom Night 2. But it didn't look like any big names are on that card either. Zack Sabre Jr. All right. I haven't really watched a whole lot of New Japan, but I figured we'd talk about it a little since there was some people from WWE there. All right, so this was the first week. Definitely interesting things going on in both WWE and AEW. I mean, with injuries to certain people, seeing people coming back, and being on the road to the Royal Rumble for WWE, being on the road to Revolution, March for AEW. Yeah, I don't think there's a whole lot else to mention right now other than what we have. Anything you can think of?
Nothing that comes to mind.
Would go over things to come this upcoming week, but they haven't announced any matches for Raw yet. They announced that Alexa Bliss will explain her actions supposedly, and I think Theory's supposed to talk about winning over Rollins, I think was all that was mentioned for. I guess I missed something on social media today while I was at work. That's about it. Let me double check real quick. SmackDown wise, I know we had kind of a title match between Strowman and Gunther coming up this Friday. Seemed like there was another match made for SmackDown too, but I can't think of what it was.
Wasn't it like Zayn?
AEW, of course, has all their matches announced for Dynamite. Oh yeah, that's right. That was one of the things that Roman did tell him on SmackDown that Damien gets to face KO this upcoming week, and he gets to take care of the KO problem ahead of time before the Royal Rumble. So much for Sammy and KO being done with each other, right?
Yep.
Like they mentioned a couple weeks ago. Oh yeah. What's next for US Shootout tomorrow night on Raw? What will Alexa Bliss have to say tomorrow night on Raw? Yep, that's all pretty much looks like they're advertising for Raw. So I would imagine possibly this week. If not this week, then the next week. You'd probably see a return on Monday Night Raw as well. There's a certain rated R superstar be at the Royal Rumble.
I mean, I hope you're not talking about just living on the edge.
Oh, no, not at all. And of course, New Year's Evil, Dynamite.
Oh, you said rated R superstar. Oh, it's got to be Dom.
Yeah, sure. Sure it is. You can even say that with a straight face.
Nope.
Right. There's a reason for that. So, that being said, the music's going to cut me off here. Here we go. Getting that here in a second. Going forward, next week, maybe Saturday night, I'll be doing this show. Haven't decided yet. It depends on how things turn out. This week, I was originally going to do it Saturday. GLWA had a show yesterday that I was going to watch. I ended up with other stuff and didn't get a chance to see it. For Hayden, if he watches this at any point in time, I'll get to GLWA's show eventually. But next weekend, I'm thinking it'll probably be Saturday. So anybody watching between now and then, feel free to join in, leave any comments from this show or for that show. And we'll see you guys then. A couple weeks, the week of the Royal Rumble, I might just do the Royal Rumble prediction show, kind of put a little recap in that same day, but we'll see how that weekend plays out too, because Royal Rumble's on a Saturday. Just stay tuned to social media and you'll find out when the next broadcast will be, which you'll see here in just a moment. John, thank you for joining in since you actually showed up and Busted Boy didn't. Shame on him. Any last things you want to mention? Don't say.
Well, I just want to say Liv Morgan's the best ever, and that's about it.
Well, that's your opinion and you're sticking to it. Gotcha.
I mean, that'll change once Nikita gets called up.